Well, hello everybody, and welcome to my next show of UKIP, the original Brexiteers. And I'm pleased to have with me today former UKIP leader Paul Nuttall. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm all right. Very good. Very good. I tell you what, I must say, looking at some of those photographs that you put up before of me when I was UKIP leader, my God, that took its toll on me. I looked awful.
Well, let's just say, not just for you, but 2017 was a long time ago, wasn't it now?
It was.
Yeah, so how you been keeping and how you doing? Because you've pretty much disappeared from the moment you resigned. So what you been up to? Tell us about what you've been up to.
Yeah, I'm in the almost at the end of writing a PhD at the University of Buckingham, which is it's about Liverpool politics at the in the Edwardian period and then into the interwar period, which has been a passion of mine for many years. I'm also doing a bit of writing actually for RT. So if anyone wants to click on their op-ed section, we'll see some of my opinions, which some people will agree with, some people won't, but at least they're quite forthright. So that's pretty much it at the moment. And one of the other things I am looking to get off the ground pretty soon is I want to build a UKIP archive. I think it's quite important that this happens. I mean, the Conservative Party have an archive, the Labour Party have an archive, the Liberals, the SDP have an archive, and I think UKIP deserves one as well, because I would argue that UKIP was probably the most successful political campaigning movement, shall we say, probably since the Anti-Corn Law League of the 1840s, because UKIP's goal was to get Brexit, and Brexit it did get. So, yeah, I do think it's important that UKIP has an archive, and I've got a number of people or a number of organisations who are interested in housing that archive. And now, it's about raising the funds to get that put together, because, a lot of academics and students do contact us, and I know that people, who are at the top end of the party do get contacted on a regular basis. But we literally have nowhere to send these people to. So all of the histories of UKIP, which will be written in the future, will be based on hearsay and oral evidence, which is the worst kind of evidence because it's based on memory and whatnot. Yeah. So if I can build this archive and we can get these structures in place, we will have a place whereby we can send academics or scholars of the future to look at the minutes of meetings and whatnot and understand really how a fringe organisation became a mainstream political party in the space of 15 years and how we did it, and also how the big decisions were arrived at. So I think it's quite important that this archive gets built. So anyone who's watching this today, if you've got any of your old UKIP gear, if you've got any leaflets or manifestos or anything like that, please keep hold of them, because you will no doubt be hearing from me in the future.
Well, that's very interesting. I know you and I have talked about you wanting to do this, but so obviously the purpose of this 30 minutes together is to talk about you and your time through politics, why you joined UKIP, and basically your rise through the ranks. Obviously, you worked very closely. I think you were you 4, 5, 6 years as Nigel Farage's deputy?
2010 to 2016. Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before that, for 2 years before that, I was also the chairman of UKIP. So,
that's where our starting point with regards to your time quite heavily involved in politics. So take us through it then. What were you doing before UKIP? Why did you join UKIP?
Okay, before UKIP, I was doing some lecturing at an FE college, and also at Liverpool Hope University as well, where I was, studying for a PhD. But I decided, well, I'll go back actually just before that. Why I joined UKIP? I joined UKIP because UKIP really took off in 2004, and I was living in Spain at the time. So I was following the European elections of 2004 from Barcelona, really, and I saw this this new exciting political party taking off in the UK. If you remember, the front man at the time was really Robert Kilroy-Silk. I mean, that seems many, many years ago now. And I decided to go onto the website and I started looking at policies, and I thought, right, I agree with almost everything which is being said here, particularly regards to the EU issue. And I signed up, and then I started the UKIP Bootle branch. I think it was in September 2004, around then anyway. I think at our first meeting, I think we had about 14 or 15 people, which we were absolutely chuffed about. But at that time, there were lots of UKIP branches springing up across the country because there was a general feeling that we could change politics for good. Obviously, politics, there's highs and there's lows. That was a high point. We were then about to enter a period of, I think the party was in an existential crisis in 2006, 2007.
And this was when Kilroy-Silk was leader, is that right?
Well, Kilroy-Silk was never the leader of UKIP. It was Roger Natman. I think Kilroy wanted to be the leader and certainly made a play or a push to become the leader, and he failed in that in his aim, and then left the party and formed something called Veritas. Do you remember that? Veritas?
I do, yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah.
So the party sort of split and the membership fell off a cliff, and then we ended up in a dire situation around 2007, and even going into 8, where we were performing awfully by elections. And as I say, I think the party was in real trouble, particularly going into the 2009 European elections, which is the point where everything began to turn around. But I'll come to that in a minute, I'm sure.
So, well, look, I want to go back to 2004 because you said that you'd noticed, you'd spotted a new and up-and-coming party. What was it? What was going through your mind? What was part of your decision-making process? Why were you looking for a party? I want to understand your thinking of. I'm interested to know if you were thinking around that time exactly the same as I was.
Well, prior to that, I have to admit I was attracted to the Conservative Party under the slogan "Save the Pound." I know you might do, but hold on. This was the era when Peter Mandelson and Tony Blair were intent on taking Britain into the euro, which I thought would be an absolute disaster. And if you look at the 2001 general election, the only party that was out there really with any chance of forming a government who were talking about saving the pound and stopping us going into the euro was the Conservative Party. So, I was active in politics before that. And then, as I say, then I went to live in Spain, and I decided that the Conservative Party certainly wasn't for me. And as I say, this new, exciting political party began to make the news and dominate the airwaves. And I just thought, as I say, going on the website and looking at the policies, I thought, this is for me. This is for me. Although, I was convinced pretty soon after joining UKIP that the party had to become more than just, because, it was, you could argue back then it was a pressure group in many ways. Yeah. But I thought that the party had to become a bit more than just being about the EU issue, and had to develop policies in other areas. And that's what we successfully did sometime down the line.
Okay, that's cool. So, you served as a member of the European Parliament. Talk us through your selection process. The register for obviously for many that don't understand how it works with a PR election system, and what it felt to for yourself to get elected for the first time.
Well, I'll go back to 2008. Actually, the party was in dire straits. We'd had a big success in 2004 at the European elections. We'd done pretty poorly at the 2005 general election. And as I say, then membership fell off a cliff. By 2008, I think membership was down to about 13,000. And we had a very elderly membership as well, which doesn't help. It's great for writing letters and meetings and stuff. Yeah. But it doesn't really help when you need foot soldiers to go out. Yeah. We're performing awfully in by-elections. The party was split from top to bottom. There were serious problems with the national executive at the time. And I then became the chairman in September 2008 at a conference in Bournemouth, which interestingly enough, it shows, I'll tell you how far the party had sunk. I don't think one single national journalist actually turned up to our party conference in 2008. We were considered to be toast. And then we pretty quickly set about, this was because Nigel was the leader, we set about reviving the party. We looked at the structures, we looked at policies, and we were pretty ruthless about kicking people out, actually, as well. But also we were aided by outside events, and that cannot be denied. And what we were aided by really was the expenses scandal, which broke in early 2009.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
because suddenly overnight, UKIP went from 3-4% in the opinion polls for European elections. I think we were suddenly in the teens, and the campaign that we ran in 2009 was quite innovative. If you remember, it was the Churchill billboards all over the country and whatnot. So it provoked debate, it was noticed, and it garnered excitement, similar to how the party had in 2004. And we went on, and I think we finished second in those European elections. We beat the Labour government of the day. So UKIP was suddenly then back. It was back on the, it was back on the radar. It was back in the political game. And I became an MEP in 2009 in that tranche. It was an exciting time, and then of course Nigel stood down as leader in September to go away and to take on John Bercow in Buckingham, if you remember.
Yeah, well, vaguely. So look, you were elected in 2009 to the European Parliament. So what was the experience like? Your first week within Brussels?
Oh my word! I mean, God, 2009. That's a long time ago, isn't it? It wasn't really a first sort of week for me because I had previously worked in the European Parliament, so I knew Brussels, and I knew many of the people who worked there. I knew many of the people who were already MEPs, not just from UKIP. I mean, I used to do. We had football training. I think it was on a Thursday night, and I used to play with Martin Callanan, who was in the Conservative Party side, Kamal, and people like that. So I knew everybody anyway. So yeah, I mean, it was great. It was exciting. What was interesting about the whole 2009-10 scenario is that it pretty much was like history repeating itself, because in 2004 UKIP had done really well in the European elections, and then the vote share had collapsed at the general election in 2005. In 2009, we've done exceptionally well at the European elections. And then once again, in 2010, the vote share collapsed again. It was a case
but that's proportional representation against first past the post, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we do recognise that first past the post is a very, very tough thing to beat.
It's not like the European system where parties, come and go, and then parties merge and change and names change.
Yeah.
The one thing you can say about first past the post is it does protect the mainstream parties, and that's why you've got a Conservative Party that's been there for hundreds of years. You've got the Liberal Democrats, which pretty much, the old Liberal Party in some ways, which has been there for 150 years, and you've got a Labour Party which has been there for 100 years. They are protected by the system, and it makes it very difficult, I would argue, harder than anywhere else in Europe, for a new party to make a breakthrough, and boy, did we come close now.
Yeah, again, to repeat what we said earlier, 2015 general election does seem a long time ago now. But how many second places did we get?
Oh, loads. But I mean, a lot did happen after 2010 and 2014. Nigel come back as leader in November 2010. I'm pretty sure it was bonfire night because he made a reference of some sort to Guy Fawkes in his acceptance speech from memory. And then I became his deputy at that point, having previously been the chairman. he sort of hoodwinked me into the role, to be honest with you. By telling me, "Oh, don't worry, it's only ceremony. You won't have that much to do." Yeah, okay, it took over my life, but it was great, and I loved it, enjoyed it. I loved being the deputy leader of UKIP. I mean, it was just great. I mean, I had the opportunity to go around and visit the branches and give speeches and work in men's clubs, you know, all over the country, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, you name it, you know, as far north as Carlisle, as far
I remember I contacted you when you were in Liverpool, if you remember, in 2015, and within 2 weeks you drove all the way down from Liverpool to come and speak at Andover Sports Centre and then drive all the way back again. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh my word! I mean, I was out there day in, day out, working for working to ensure that this party did make its breakthrough and that Brexit was achieved. And look, all this hard work in the end from all of us paid off, because when Cameron made his commitment to giving a Brexit referendum or a referendum on membership of the EU, I think it was in January 2013 from memory. That was all forced by UKIP, and I think in particular it was forced by how well we were doing in local elections. I'm sorry, by-elections, parliamentary by-elections at that time, because just before he made that commitment, I think we just got 26 or 27% or something like that in Rotherham, and we'd really spooked the Conservative Party. And I think he thought that if he gave that commitment to holding a referendum on our membership of the EU, one, he would kill UKIP, because everyone would just go back home, into the Conservative fold. And two, I don't think he ever believed that he would form a majority government. So therefore, it was a promise that he never thought he'd have to keep. And he got both things wrong.
Luckily,
as soon as he made that commitment in January 2013, I remember just going, yes, we've got this. Because what he'd done is he brought politics onto our turf. But he could never go far enough. He could never go as far as us.
Paul, give me 10 seconds. Very unprofessional, but somebody at the door. Give me 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Sorry about that. Very unprofessional, but I have to. But I have to send a parcel back off to the Department for Health and Social Care. But right, so there is something I want to talk about, which I found hilarious when you told me about it. So if you could tell our viewers, you, Gwaine Towler, dressed up as chickens. Go.
Oh, come on. I didn't want you to bring that. This was a private conversation.
Well, I've done it now, so go. Come on.
Going into that. But all I will say is, we were Gwaine and I, many years ago, we're running around the European Parliament dressed as human-sized chickens. And the whole point of the thing... The whole point of the stunt was to say that you're too chicken to hold a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. But how I was roped into dressing up as a chicken, I'll never know. And I never thought anyone would ever find out that I had done this. And then I saw that. Do you remember the magazine Independence News? Do you remember the magazine Independence News? Well, the chicken on the front of the in-house magazine, I think it was me. Gwaine thinks it's him. I think it's me. But luckily, no one knew that it was me under the chicken mask.
but so this is obviously while the European Parliament is in session.
This was before I was an MEP.
That makes it all right then.
Oh no, because if I was an MEP, I would have forced somebody else to do it.
I know. Look, so we got the referendum. We won it as we all know in June of 2016. It was absolutely fantastic. One of the things that for me that UKIP had was camaraderie among the grassroots. Absolutely solid. If we had a by-election in Timbuktu, you and I both know we would have hundreds of people there, all dedicated, no matter what the weather. Absolutely phenomenal. Unsung heroes.
I have to say, it took off from I stood in the by-election in Oldham in late 2010. It was Nigel's first by-election after coming back as leader, and we knew that we had to put in a respectable performance, and that I did okay. But then Jane Collins, a couple of months later, stood in the by-election in Barnsley, where I think we finished second, and it was our first second. And the Express, by that point, I think the Daily Express had come out and become the first mainstream newspaper to actually say we should be out of the European Union.
Yeah.
And then we started getting momentum, you know, through the Express and through the things we were saying and through our by-election results and whatnot. And what really helped it take off were two things, really. One, as soon as we overtook the Liberal Democrats in opinion polls, because then opinion polls couldn't just lump us with others. They had to put UKIP as UKIP in the opinion poll. So therefore, suddenly, you know, we were a mainstream political party, and we were a threat. And I never forget when we broke the 10% barrier in an opinion poll, and for the first time, the party in an opinion poll for the general election was hitting double figures. And I remember Nigel and I almost doing a jig in his office, because we knew at that point we were onto something, we had momentum, and something special was happening. You know, our membership was really going up. I mean, going through the roof, really, to limits that, you know, levels that we'd never seen before. I think at its peak, I mean, it had over around 50 to 60,000 members, UKIP.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare the last decade with, you know, what we've experienced from our political leaders in the last 12 months, boy, do we need some kind of political force now, and there just isn't one.
I mean, with this whole social care thing as well, and what's going, you know, and what's going on in the channel at the moment, and obviously with the whole culture war that's going on, shall we say? I mean, there is nobody at the moment of sufficient standing to hold the government's feet to the fire on these issues. If you would say from the right of them, could you say centre right of the government? So therefore, they're getting away with whatever they want to get away with. But it will change. It will change. You know, politics is cyclical, and there will be the next Nigel Farage or the next UKIP. It will come along, and I'm sure. You know,
I'm not so convinced of that. I think we live in our lifetime. I think it's unprecedented times, because we have a left-wing Conservative Party, because they're not centre right wing, and we have a far left-wing, batshit crazy opposition party. We don't have any mainstream media now. The Express has been bought up by the Mirror Group, so there's nobody, Paul. So if you look at the policies that have been enacted since 2015 to the present day, you know, forget about the Secretary of States and these ministers. They're just glove puppets. It's the civil service that have been, for me, the biggest problem in this country. They make the European Union look like amateurs. You know, look at all the rewriting of history. We live in times now, Paul, where the reality is people like you and me are despised by our government. Yeah, where they told us how to vote in 2000 up to the 2016 EU referendum. We ignored them and we voted to leave. Yeah, a majority voted to leave. They then spent the next 4 years trying to do everything they could to avoid actually carrying that out. And I believe the 2019 EU election could very well have been used as a barometer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How does the country still feel? And of course, the Brexit Party stole the day, so they had to. You know, they were literally on their last legs. They had to push it through. What's your thoughts on that?
Very difficult, really. I do still have hope. I have more hope than you. I'm more positive than you are about it. I do think something else will come along. The only problem is for any new insurgent party, they will have to make their breakthroughs really through first past the post. Whereas we were able to make breakthroughs in European elections because it was proportional representation, but with Brexit, that was all taken away. Now, I'll tell you just something else quickly about the whole Brexit referendum. I don't think we as a party, as UKIP, really planned sufficiently enough at the time of what we were going to do if we won the referendum. I think we knew what we were going to do if we'd lost. Because I tell you what, if we'd lost, UKIP would now have more MPs than the SNP.
Yeah,
UKIP would be huge now because it would have, just as happened with the SNP after the 2014 Scottish, it was a 13-14 Scottish independence referendum. UKIP would be huge now. But we won, which is a good thing because we fulfilled our goals, our aims. I didn't actually think we were going to win, you know. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think we were going to win. Maybe my views were clouded by the fact that I was spending a lot of time in cities where all the cities voted for Remain. But I thought we were going to miss out by 2 or 3%. And I thought UKIP was then going to go bang and be huge. And that we would probably be back here voting again in, say, the mid-2020s, where I thought we would certainly get out. But thank God we did get out when we did, because you just look at where the European Union is headed now, and it's a train that we don't want to be on. Put it that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're quite right about the timing, aren't you? And if you want to see evidence of how the European Union, what they really think of themselves and us, and look at the pandemic, look at the way they handled their vaccine. I mean, they were months and months behind us with regards to their progress. And but what I found really interesting was how insular the European Union nations got when it came to COVID-19. They weren't working as a union.
Yeah. All of this integration lark went right out of the window, and national first, and that will always happen. That will always happen. National interests.
There is well, look, our time is nearly coming to an end, but there is something I want to ask you with regards to Michel Barnier and his complete, shall we say, personality shift since he's announced his intention to run for the French presidency. I mean, he almost, well, of course he will. He almost sounds like Nigel Farage, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he'll win.
What a hypocrite.
I wrote an article for RT I think a couple of weeks ago when he announced his candidacy. Don't forget, I don't think it's happened yet. He's got to get the nomination of his party, which he will get. I think he will get.
Of course he will.
And I think Barnier is a serious player in this. Do not discount this man. And
hang on a second.
Hang on a second. When I said it, but look,
how can he on a Tuesday talk about people opposing open borders being this, that, and the other, and now one of his strong points is we need to get our national sovereignty. But I mean, it's just laughable. Because he's absolutely laughable.
He's a politician. He's a politician. Oh. And many of these guys, I mean, principle goes right out of the window. I mean, that was certainly not the case in UKIP, but principle with Barnier, and I have to say, I've met Barnier, and he's a class act. I'm not going to lie. I think Nigel said this himself about Barnier.
Yeah, Nigel said it about Juncker as well, didn't he? He said the same thing about Jean-Claude Juncker.
Juncker was good fun. Dangerous, wrong, but quite good fun. But Barnier now is a serious player, and he's a serious candidate in this election. If you look at the regional elections which took place, I think this took place in June in France. Barnier's party did particularly well. Le Pen failed to take a single regional presidency. Macron was humiliated. So it's Barnier's party that has the momentum going into the election. And if he can take part of Le Pen's vote and marry it with the traditional Conservative vote, he could well be unassailable if he gets through to the second round of voting.
But what impact will he have?
He'll be the EU's man as well. They won't.
That's where I was going. That's where I was going. It would just be Macron, but 2 foot taller.
Yeah, and the line that Barnier will take is, look, I've been a Brexit negotiator. I've been a European Commissioner for so many years. They already know me in Berlin, and in Prague and in Warsaw and Rome and Madrid and everywhere else.
But don't you think the French electorate will go, look at the state of our country? Don't you think the French electorate will look and think, what are we being turned into? But Paris now is almost a war zone. If you go around and I've been there recently, if you go around the Eiffel Tower, I mean, that's not how I remember it 15 years ago, the last time I went. It's a completely unrecognizable country now. Don't you think that
you're selling Donald Trump? What did he say? Paris isn't Paris anymore. Something like that.
Well, yeah, I'm a big supporter of his, but yeah. Well, look, Paul. So, what's your future? What does the future hold for you? What do you want to do?
Well, I want to get my PhD. I want to carry on writing.
That'll piss the mirror off.
I do write. Yeah, quite. I do write for journals and things like that as well. And I really want to get this UKIP archive off the ground. I really do. I think it is so important because, trust me, if this isn't built and if it isn't built soon, it will never happen if it isn't done soon. And the whole history of UKIP will be lost to future historians. And I guarantee that other parties will claim that they did what we did, and that cannot be allowed to happen. So I do want to get this UKIP archive built.
Okay, superb. Look. So what you and I will talk off air, Paul, with regards to how people can get in touch with you. Yeah, and I will add it into the description field if they, former UKIPers want to, give you any sort of information that you may not be aware of with regards to UKIP's history going back as 1993.
I mean, this is the point as well. A lot of the stuff which I need to get, and I've had a lot of people come forward already who've got lofts, attics full of this stuff, or cellars and whatnot, and garages. A lot of the stuff pre-2004 isn't digital. It's all papers,
physical. Yeah.
Physical. And it'll mean me probably hiding a transit van. I'm doing a little tour of the country, putting all this together, and I just think that this would be a brilliant source of information for future scholars. I really do think it's so important that this UKIP archive happens.
Well, definitely, we've had a bigger influence on the direction of this country than the current government and the opposition have had in the last 15 years. UKIP listened to the electorate. It's something that the two main parties haven't done for a long time.
Yeah, please don't underestimate UKIP's achievements because they were great.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Paul, thank you so much for your time. Really, really enjoyed it. And wish you all the luck in the future.
Cheers, Dan.